Hello everyone, we're Paciolan Team B. Here we're going to talk about our data visualization report. In today's presentation, I will first start introduce our project objective and our data overview. After that, we will talk about our data visualization, insights, and our next steps. Next, our goal is to find the top 10% donors in college sports and predict these big donors who might not donate next year. Next page. Paciolan provided us with 48 tables, and currently we're primarily focusing on two of them, which are the deemed donor table and transaction table. The deemed donor table contains 22 columns with the important features of the donors like the year of donation and the greatest donation amount. The other table, transaction table, contains all transaction details with the important features like payment amount and the organization the donor donate. Next page. Move on to our visualization part. We will start from define our key donor, who is the top 10% of the donors during the past 5 years. Then we will talk about the behavior of these key donors. At the end, we will look deep into the donor labs for each year. Next. Before we start, I want to highlight that since Paciolan has a lot of clients, we will now focus on the clients in the Big 12 conference. Here we can see the 12 universities with the total amount of donors, and all of them have at least 7,000 donors. Next page. For this graph, we're looking to identify the big donors over several 5-year spans. The x-axis represents the total payment amount, the left y-axis shows the count of unique account ID, and the right y-axis displays the percentage of total running sum of the count of unique account IDs. From this graph, we can determine the threshold for the total payment amount that qualifies as a big donor for each 5-year range. Next. Take 2013 to 17 as an example. So what we're seeing here is that when we get close to 90% in the running total percentage of account ID counts, we can spot that the cutoff for being considered a big donor from 2013 to 17 is about 31,000. Next. Using the same method, we figured out the big donor cutoff for each 5-year span. Most are around 32 to 33,000, but the 2016 to 2020 range really stands out with a much higher cutoff of 36,000. With this information, we're now going to take a closer look at how these big donors have been given. Next. So looking at this graph, we can see how much the big donors threw in every year. We're also looking to see how this stacks up against the pledge amount. Basically, a pledge is when donors promise to donate a certain amount but haven't paid up just yet. And from what the graph is showing us, it's pretty clear that the trend of payment amount and pledge amount are highly correlated. Next, I'll hand it to my teammate Hussein to talk about donor labs.
Thank you, Ting. So here we have visualized the donor labs for 5 years. So we have visualized that every a donor who makes payment for 5 years and he's not paying again he's not making donation for the 6th year. Here you can see the on x-axis we have the year, and on the y-axis we have the count, and we can see that in 2020 there was a high donor labs, and this was also a year of pandemic. However, the average of donor labs every year is almost between the range of 15,000 to 20,000. Next. Furthermore, we developed a correlation matrix for donor labs, and we see there was a high correlation between the payment amount and pledge amount. Also, there was a high correlation between greatest gift amount and the payment amount. Next. Further, we also derived a payment versus pledge graph for the donor labs to see what was the correlation for each and every organization ID. Here you can see that we have laid out the organization ID on the x-axis and the value on the y-axis to see if there was any correlation. However, we see that there was a correlation between a few of those, which of 50%, where uh, for organizations like Houston, Oxstate, and ISU. Next. Further, I would just like to mention the key takeaways from the project. we have derived the big donor definition, the threshold, which is the threshold for categorizing big donor based on the contribution, which has evolved across the 5-year interval. Further, we also derived the donor lapse, which is the rate for each year. Further enhance correlation metrics to analyze relations between pledge amount and payment amount. Next. So what are our key next steps? Further, we are going to segment the big donor. We are going to do segmentation for our big donor labs to see what kind of donors characteristics. What are the donors characteristics who have been lapsing every year? Further, we will also analyze the uh, time frames for the donors who are lapsing to study time series analysis. Further, we will also see the reason for such churn. Was it due to any economical reason or due to any events or any particular events had a positive or negative effect on the churn? And lastly, we will also produce a churn metrics for our predictive model and analyze various predictive models to see which model works out the uh, best scores. And finally, we will finalize a predictive model to predict donor churn. Thank you.